Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and welcome to the next harvest with Avinash Singh. That's right, I am your host, Avinash Singh, and you're looking at Real TV right here from the comfort of your home, both locally, regionally, and internationally, where we bring the cutting edge dynamics of agriculture here in Trinidad and Tobago and the wider region, CARICOM territory. The Next Harvest is a TV series exploring innovation, resilience, and opportunity across the CARICOM and the Caribbean farming landscape. So today's episode, I want to just spend some time recapping in terms of what we spoke about in the last show. I think the last show was quite a very informative, very formative one. And, persons got the opportunity to learn about all of the dynamics in applying for vehicle incentives in Trinidad and Tobago and accessing the grants that are available to all registered farmers. And we spent some time breaking down the regulations as to who can qualify, what value you can qualify with, and what type of vehicles or tractors you can purchase on your farm to be able to qualify for the rebate. On today's episode, I think I would want to spend some more time going through all of the ramifications of becoming a farmer here in Trinidad and Tobago and going through all of the incentives and the subsidies that the state continues to make available for all registered farmers and farmers that can benefit, farmers that can access some of these incentives and subsidies. Certainly, it will go a long way on your farm. And as I said in my earlier episodes, that this show, The Next Harvest with Avinash Singh, really intends to go throughout the CARICOM region and see what's going on, what farmers are doing, the new trends, the new innovation, technology, the climate smart agriculture, all of these areas that are blooming, that are getting, especially the younger population excited about getting into agriculture. I spent some time in terms of how to get persons attracted to the sector and what is in it for them to really want to do agriculture. So today I want to speak a little bit about water for agriculture. As we are currently in the rainy season, months away from the dry season again, a lot of farmers are going to have challenges in terms of water retention, water harvesting, water management, and general water use on their farm. So, do you know that registered farmers can access an incentive to construct a pond on their farm? You can also access incentives of purchasing a water pump. You can access incentives in terms of purchasing all of your fittings, your lines, your valves, all of your equipment that will be required for irrigation on your farm. So we can go into some of the details, and I am really going to, the intention of the show is really to break down all of the basics for you and walk you through the whole process of becoming a registered farmer, breaking down all of the incentives and subsidies that you are entitled to, that you can apply, show you how to apply, give you the clarification that you require. And in the future, I really intend to take this program out to you on the field and actually show you what our farmers are doing on their establishments and show you the level of innovation that exists here in Trinidad and Tobago. Show you some of the entrepreneurs, what they are doing, how they are converting agricultural primary production, raw material into value-added, import substituted product, just as good as the imported versions. To show you some of the technology. A lot of persons have reached out to me wanting me to come and pay a visit to their farm, pay a visit to their operation, and to highlight what they are doing. And very soon you will be able to get that opportunity of Real TV going to farms and us taking all of the information and sharing it to the wider population. So these few episodes, I really wanted to set the foundation, the basis for this program, to incentivize you to continue to play your part in the agricultural sector in this country. While I'm at it, I would want to really commend some of the work I would have seen recently in the agricultural sector in terms of what the state continues to do to make agriculture, affordable, sustainable, and productive for the wider population. Just yesterday, the Ministry of Agriculture distributed dwarf Brazilian coconut plants to farmers throughout the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago, and persons were exposed to new plant material, the Brazilian dwarf variety of coconut, that the ministry quite a number of months ago would have procured, brought into the country, propagated at Centeno, the research facility of the ministry, and now distributed these planting material to farmers. Applaudable. In terms of the policy direction, I want to say again, I continue to congratulate the ministry for continuing policy decisions that was put down in foundation by the last administration. A lot of things, people tend to want to politicize and all of that. I'm not here to do that. I don't intend to politicize anything, because whether you are political, whether you are not, we all require safe, reliable, affordable, and nutritious food. And it doesn't matter to me who produces, what color you wear, and all of that. The issues here in Trinidad and Tobago is we must be able to feed at least some semblance of ourselves in terms of local content, and whatever the private sector as well as the state do to benefit the wider population and the agricultural sector, I will continue to applaud. So this Brazilian coconut plants, we look forward to the farmers who have benefited from those high quality genetic material. Again, as I said, this program was set in motion by the last administration and continues under this current administration, like many of the programs that are going on in Trinidad and Tobago. And it's not me to really to condemn or all of that. It's really to say the government continues to understand agriculture is not a short-term fix. Agriculture is a foundational project that requires long, hard, tedious investment, and it's something that I'm happy to see continuing. So whether it was the rice seeds that came from Guyana, that again was a project under the last administration that we would have went to Guyana, we would have negotiated, we would have signed a memorandum of understanding, and we would have procured all those rice seeds that were imported into the country and then distributed to our rice farmers, of course, free of charge. So again, with the coconut plants, applaudable, and I really want to see the farmers put those coconut plants to use. And in a few years' time, these plants will be able to generate more coconut plants, and then, the real rare and share model could be utilized, where you earn one, you share one. So those who would have benefited from the coconut plants, when you set them out on your farm and you are able to reproduce these plants, I just hope that good conscience prevail and you can share some of these plant material to other farmers who would also like to benefit from these plants. Also, in terms of the situation we saw brewing recently with the whole issue about nutrient and the production of urea, I did notice quite a number of farmers reaching out with the frustration that already there are some agro shops that are continuing to hoard and drastically increase the price of urea. In some cases, I saw urea being sold for 3 times the price. So again, we don't set prices, we don't control prices in this country. There's no price control mechanism. The most we could do is ask for good conscience to prevail. We could ask the agro shops to have a heart and, try not to dig out the farmer's eye, basically. Because even the rice producers, they are sharing some concern about getting the rice seeds to go, and then the main fertilizer they continue to use on their establishment is urea. And I really call on the government to explore all the possible options to ensure that the farmers are not the one to pay the price, the ultimate price, for getting their produce going. So as we continue this program and we share on the insights of what is going on here in Trinidad and Tobago, I'm happy to bring some of the agricultural news to your attention so that you are aware how difficult the environment is for farmers to continue to feed ourselves, to continue to produce food, to continue to try to earn our income, and to continue to support their family. Let me just check with my producer. I think it's about time that we take a little break. And when we return, I'll go straight into the incentives and subsidies that are available to farmers where water management and water for agriculture is concerned. Stay tuned. We'll be right back on the next harvest with Avinash Singh.
You're viewing Real TV. Thanks for choosing us.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
I'm Smith. Have you ever wondered what a man is thinking? Have you ever wondered why a man does what he does? Well, join us on our new show called A Man's Perspective, right here on Real TV on Mondays 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., where we discuss just that. The points, the clues to get into a man's mind, right here on Real TV, bringing reality to you.
Macon Construction Company Limited. Save big whilst building stronger. We build with our Macon innovative building systems, which provides high wind speed, earthquake, sea blast and fire resistance. Is thermally and acoustically insulated. Provides improved construction timelines and cost savings. We provide construction services from design to finish and everything in between. Macon Construction Company Limited. Building green today with tomorrow's technology. Contact or visit us today.
Get ready to party with a purpose. The GMVS Community Parent Support Group presents Party with a Purpose, the Cooler Fete. Fully AC activated and sailing aboard the Harbor Master on Friday, December 12th, 2025. Boarding starts at 7:30 p.m. We sail from 8 to 11 p.m. and it's just $250. Bring your cooler and your crew, but remember, no glass and no firearms. It's good vibes only as we party for a cause. Music by DJs Doll, Smalls, and Chunks, featuring Rihanna Gopal, Amit Suknanan, Rishi Singh, Suresh Miraj, the original Pumping in the Sandman, and Tracy D. For tickets, call Crystal at 379-9248. That's Party with a Purpose, the Cooler Fete. Cool vibes, warm hearts, and all for a good cause.
You're viewing Real TV, ultimate in programming. Thanks for choosing us.
Welcome back, viewers. You're looking at The Next Harvest with Avinash Singh, and you are locked on right here on Real TV, where we are bringing the whole conversation about agriculture here in Trinidad and Tobago to the forefront in terms of offering clarification, information, and just the know-how in terms of how do you become a registered farmer, what incentives does the state have in place for you, and how to benefit from some of the things that are available for registered farmers here in Trinidad and Tobago. Before we went to break, I was on the verge of giving you some of the examples and some of the clarification for farmers to access incentives surrounding agricultural water and water management. So registered farmers can avail themselves to 75% of the cost to build a pond on their establishment and on their farm. So in terms of breaking that down to the dollar value, if you construct a pond on your establishment and you spend whatever sum, the state allows you to claim back in an incentive of 75% of the cost to build that pond, up to a maximum of $24,000 per holding. So you go and you construct a pond. Of course, my advice again is speak with your extension officer. Let them guide you in terms of the process, the size, the dimension, all of these things. Don't just go and dig a hole, call it a pond, and then submit bills. Because chances are you will not be paid for that. Go to your county office, indicate to them that, hey, I would like to construct a pond on my establishment, on my farm, on my holding, on my estate. They may allow you to bring them a plan, bring a plan to see how to construct, where to put it, and all of that. And then, of course, you submit your bills to the county with all of your relevant documentation, and you can avail yourself to up to $24,000 in an incentive or a rebate for the construction of that pond. But it doesn't stop there. In terms of what you can also avail yourself to, if you purchase a water pump for your farm, you can get back 50% of the cost, up to $20,000 per annum on your farm. So if you're a farmer with multiple locations and you need to buy more than one water pump, that's all right. The regulations allow you to purchase pumps, whether it be one pump, two pump, three pump. What they look at is the value of that pump. And then they give you the limit of up to $20,000 in terms of the purchase. So if you spend $40,000 in the acquisition of water pumps for your farm, it means you will get back $20,000, which is the maximum cap you will get back for your farm. So you buy a water pump, you buy two water pump, you will get back that incentive, 50% of the cost, up to $20,000. In terms of the equipment and all of the auxiliary items now that goes towards with the pump, so your lay flat hose, your PVC pipe, your fittings, your lay flat, your high pressure hose, your valves, all of these items are also allowed for your irrigation requirements and your irrigation needs. So if you purchase your pump and then you purchase all of the valves, the fittings, the underground lines or lay flat hose, all of these things, keep your receipt. Your receipt is valid for 1 year. And you can claim, it's quite significant, you can claim up to $40,000 in the cost of your irrigation equipment, watering systems. So 50% of the cost, it means if you spend $80,000 and above, you will be able to incur a rebate of up to $40,000 back on your farm, on your establishment. So, of course, there's some basic criteria. As I've said, if you are looking to put down a pond, well, or dam on your farm, sometimes it will require pre-inspection of the site or prerequisite for accessing the incentive. So, simply put, speak to your county, your extension officer, before you make these investments, and they will be able to advise you in terms of what the regulations are if you are eligible, if you meet the requirements and so on. Similarly for water pumps, bear in mind that the water pump must have a horsepower rating of 1.5 horsepower and above. So for agricultural purposes, the incentive is really for pumps 1.5 horsepower and above. So that is all of the incentives surrounding water and water management, the construction of ponds, the purchase of water pumps, the purchase of fittings, pipes. All of these things are covered under the regulations of the Ministry of Agriculture, and where you can access this incentive. Farmers also wanting to spend money on land preparation or land clearing. And this is one of the incentives I want to ask the government to look into, because not all farmers have the capital to purchase their own tractors or their own implement and equipment. Not all farmers are at that scale to be able to afford these incentives, and these purchases have very high capital expenditure. A lot of farmers still rely on tractor services provided by the tractor owners. And in my estimation, the incentive that are allowed, it's quite a hassle. The paperwork, the process, the bureaucracy, the red tape to go through the claiming of tractor or land preparation and land clearing. Sometimes this incentive is not utilized by many farmers, because many farmers, the time it will take to go through the process and apply and all of that, just to get back a very minimal sum, it's sometimes not worth it. So this is something I would want to see really expanded upon and reviewed, so that persons who cannot afford their own tractor, who cannot afford their own implement, equipment, machinery, can avail themselves to a higher incentive for land preparation and clearing. So farmers, you will realize by now, it's quite significant resources are placed for your benefit at the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, paid for by you, the taxpayers, to be able to go through your investment and the opportunities that you will want to explore. And that is what I really wanted to share. I'm almost impossible for me to go through every incentive with a fine-teeth comb, because these things are reviewing all the time. It's an incentives review committee that's supposed to be meeting, chaired by the Chief Technical Officer of the Ministry of Agriculture, that's supposed to sit down as a committee and look at all of the changes in the environment, the changes in dynamics, the changing of implementation, review where review is required, and adjust these incentives and subsidies. So I hope, at the ministry that is happening, that is going on, and persons are, being able to claim these incentives and subsidies. Because agriculture here in Trinidad and Tobago, it's quite unique. I had the opportunity to visit a couple of CARICOM nations, a couple of CARICOM countries, and when I went through the list of incentives and subsidies that are available to our farmers, it's almost envious that Trinidad and Tobago's contribution to the agricultural sector via incentives and subsidies are quite significant in relation to what other persons are available to apply for in other CARICOM territories. So what really is the question to be asked? While the incentives and subsidies are available, the accessing of those incentives and subsidies is somewhat the problem. Because you will always hear me talking about registered farmers. And this is something I've had challenges, even when I was at the ministry, looking at. Because only if you are registered, then you can avail yourself to all of these incentives and subsidies that I've identified. But there was a policy decision back in 2012, 2013, around there, that delinked agricultural incentives and subsidies with land tenure. Land tenure was the #1 requirement to be a registered farmer. And when that policy decision was made, I believe it was then Minister Vasant Bharat, who understood then that not all farmers are registered in this country. Not all farmers have a farmer's registration card. And not all farmers would be eligible or entitled to claim incentives and subsidies. So what he did, he sat with the technical team, they came up with a decision of delinking agricultural incentives with land tenure. So it meant there was a verification process of if you were planting on a parcel of land for more than 5 years, hoping that that land was not a forest reserve, a river reserve, a flood-prone area, an environmentally sensitive area, or those kind of areas that fall for reserve status, then you were able to register and get yourself a temporary farmer's card, and then also avail yourself to incentives and subsidies, some of which were not in a permanent sense of infrastructure, but certain incentives you were still able to get. So I'm not sure if that policy still exists at the ministry, and I'm not sure if that incentive policy still is available to farmers who do not have a land deed, who do not have land tenure, and who are also producing food for this nation, but they find themselves in a difficult task of not being able to produce certain land tenure documents, which is really the precursor of farmer registration. So that in itself would have assisted and alleviated some of the problems that we encountered, where persons can avail themselves to farmers' incentives and subsidies. So just dialing back to the coconut distribution, the coconut plant distribution, this is also another incentive I would like to see reviewed, because a lot of farmers can tell you that they are being devastated with the rhino beetle, or the red ring and the red palm disease that has almost wiped out the entire coconut industry in this country. And then what is left of coconut is a very aged plantation. When you look to the coastal areas of this country, whether it be Mayaro, Manzanilla, or Cedros, when you look to the coconut establishment and the coconut estates that exist, some of these coconut plantations could be 100 years old. And therefore, these trees require rehabilitation, replanting in some cases. New genetic material needs to come in, and that is why I'm happy to see that the Brazilian dwarf is here, and we are replicating and multiplying and being able to distribute to farmers. So for farmers who wants to go back into coconut, there is an incentive targeted initially to reinvigorate the coconut industry through the rehabilitation of existing coconut plantations. If you already have an existing coconut plantation, and you want to put in new cultivars, new plants, improve agronomy and disease arranged management, especially for water nut production and dry nut production, there's an incentive of the establishment cost of a new coconut field of a maximum of $6,000 per hectare. So that is the cost that is associated with assisting you in re-establishing or new establishment of coconut fields in this country. So that is also an area I would like to see expanded, because trust me, coconut plantations are quite expensive to start. Coconut plants are quite expensive to get a hold of. It's a minimum around $15 to $20 per plant. Of course, in the ministry, you might be able to get a plant highly subsidized for about $10 per plant. But this is an area where I'm sure it costs a lot of money to prepare your land to put in coconut. But stick a little pin. We are about to take a short commercial break, and when we return, I will give you a little more details in terms of the coconut incentive right here in Trinidad and Tobago. Stay tuned.
You're viewing Real TV. Thanks for choosing us.
I'm Naka, introducing to you Bridging the Gap, where we touch on the news, discuss social issues and current affairs with a twist. Every Monday to Friday in real time, right here on Real TV.
Hi, I'm Zalisa Budu Singh Rupani, and I'm inviting you to join me for Conversations with Zalisa right here on Real TV. It's not just another talk show, it's a space for real stories, real insight, and real impact. We cover it all: health, law, parenting, relationships, drug and substance abuse, mental health, social issues, and so much more, with expert guests who help bring clarity to life's most important questions. So whether you're looking to be informed, empowered, or simply inspired, this show is for you. Weekdays at 10 a.m. with repeats on Real TV.
When security matters most, choose Catch Security Services Limited. We are proudly approved by the Ministry of Homeland Security. We protect your home, business, community, and much more. Our services include professional baton and armed officers, specialized K-9 units, mobile patrols, secure cash pickups, secure transport, and pepper spray applications and supply coming soon. Don't wait. Secure your assets now. Contact Catch Security today. Call 622-6601, email info@cssl-tt.com, or visit our office at 30-32 Saddle Road, Maraval.
You're viewing Real TV. Thanks for choosing us.
Welcome back, viewers, to the Next Harvest with Avinash Singh. Before we took a little break, we were talking about coconut establishment and coconut production right here in Trinidad and Tobago. And I was telling you, I was happy to see that these Brazilian dwarf coconut plants were made available free of charge to a lot of farmers in Trinidad. And I'm sure the intention was really to spread this genetic material throughout as far and wide as it can possibly go. Because the intention should be, once farmers are able to plant these coconut plants, regenerate plant material, also try to get and produce more plant material to share with your friend, share with your neighbor, share with another farmer, so that we can get these new plant material, these new genetic stock throughout the country. Because I was on the point about the aged coconut plantations we have in Trinidad and Tobago. These coastal communities, Mayaro, Manzanilla, Cedros, the coconut establishments there could be probably close to 100 years old. And it's quite difficult to get production up on these old establishments. So what I really intend to see is that more persons get involved into revitalizing their coconut establishment, or new farmers coming on board and tapping into the incentive of the establishment of coconut estates in this country. Of course, there's an incentive of $6,000 per hectare for the establishment of new coconut fields. And then there's a revitalization or rehabilitation of old or abandoned coconut estates. I believe there's an incentive of up to $4,000 per hectare. Persons wanting to go back, revitalize, replant their existing coconut establishments. So these are some of the areas that persons should be availing themselves for getting back into production. Of course, it's similar with citrus. We also can see there's a $6,000 per hectare establishment of citrus plot, and then there's a $4,000 per hectare in terms of rehabilitation of your estates. These grants and these incentives should really be reviewed, because for persons who are in these large estate setting, it's very, very difficult for them to generate a cash flow by planting long-term crops. Sometimes you have to wait 3, 4, 5 years for these crops to come in and start bearing. So there's a lull period of not having any income. And to put out the amount of money you have to put out to establish these plots is quite significant. And therefore, these incentives should really be reviewed. And in my opinion, it should be increased. So you would want to encourage persons to go back into long-term cropping systems, mixed cropping, multi-cropping systems where you can also include some short-term element and cash crop on your field to be able to benefit. So there's quite significant amounts of incentives that are available to you farmers. Today, I was very fortunate to have a little phone call with some colleagues and some professors with affiliation to the University of the West Indies, United Nations, and someone from the Ministry of Agriculture in Guyana. And what we were talking about is basically where Guyana is at present in terms of their agricultural system and their agricultural production and their capacity, and where they would like to see themselves as really the food basket of the region and really the food producers of the region. And they have the capability, they certainly have the land resource to really do so and to maximize the true potential and to produce food that will be able to be distributed throughout the CARICOM region and beyond, so that we can get food right here in the close proximity of the intra-regional trade. Of course, you know, during COVID, we saw how difficult it was to import and get access to a lot of things. And if you can have food being supplied from intra-regional sources rather than extra-regional sources, intra-regional meaning right here in the CARICOM region, extra-regional means outside, different continents, Europe, USA, China, Asia, all those areas, which a lot of food do come from, a lot of food we import, and we will always have to import a certain degree of our food production because we'll not be able to produce all the food that we consume. And that is something I think we have to pay attention to, so that we have to capitalize on all of these niche markets, all of these specialty items, all of the geo-indicated products like our scorpion pepper, the finer flavor cocoa. There are a lot of passion fruit varieties that are grown right here in Trinidad that is very exquisite in taste, texture, and the quality. So we have to really tap into a lot of these areas where our farmers can generate a higher income. But I always say, one thing I learned during COVID is that we have some of the most resilient farmers in the world right here in Trinidad and Tobago. Tell the farmers what to grow, how much to grow, and you have no issue whatsoever. Farmers can grow anything, any quantity. Our real problem is the whole marketing structure of farmers being able to capture a good price, as well as tapping into markets that will allow the quantities to be sold so that persons could really make a profit. What do I mean by that? Tell a farmer what to grow and how much to grow, he will grow it. But when it comes to the marketing side of things now, we have to depend wholly on the local, the regional, the municipal market, the farmers market, and the bulk of produce really cannot be sold in those types of markets. I mean, I could just use sweet potato as an example. The price of sweet potato fluctuates quite significantly, and it's only now we are seeing a lot of innovative companies coming to the fore and getting involved in agro-processing, putting some of these raw material into processed or agro-processed foods. So you have sweet potato fries, sweet potato flour, sweet potato pasta, sweet potato chips, snacks. All of these things now are being created from sweet potato, which can take a bulk from the market. I also heard, I'm yet to explore, that locally manufactured pet food, one of the ingredients is sweet potato. So these are some of the innovative ways that we have to look to utilize whatever is an abundance of supply here in Trinidad and Tobago and try to put it into value added and get it out there into the wider population. I mean, just the thought of having sweet potato fries as opposed to Irish potato fries when you consume a lot of our fast food is something we can look to in that direction. Of course, I think what the problem is the cost, the price. Because as consumers, you want to make sure your dollar stretches as far as possible, that you can get coverage and you can get best value while not interfering with quality and nutritional content of your food. But it has to make commercial sense. You want to be able to purchase food reasonably so that you can feed your families while not busting your pockets. So I remember back in the days we were looking at exploring alternative flour because our staple is wheat flour. Almost everybody consumes roti, doubles, pies, pastries, all of these things, bread. The main staple here in our region is, unfortunately, the product that we don't produce, wheat flour. And the conversation was really centered around helping the agro-processors or the agro-entrepreneurs develop an alternative flour source. And we have the raw materials, we have the ground provision, we have the breadfruit, the plantain, the yam, the dasheen, the eddos, the sweet potato, the cassava, all of which can be processed into flour. The problem is the cost and the price. Because when we did the comparison at the marketing end, and I did a little research in terms of, I asked some of the consumers, would you prefer buying wheat flour for just around $2, $1.50, $1.75 per pound, or cassava or sweet potato flour for around $20 per pound? And obviously, you know the answer. People will still gravitate to the cheaper source of the staple, which is really wheat flour. So until we don't bring the price down of alternative flour, it's not going to happen. It's not going to reach a stage where we can just drastically switch our cultural taste and tradition from wheat flour to alternative flour. While the idea is very laudable and it is something commendable, we have to find a way to ensure that we bring the economies of scale to par with countries that are able to produce the equivalent for very, very cheap, very reasonable. And that is where the main conversation lies. It's easy to say you want to reduce the food import bill. But to the consumers who face the food import bill head on, mountain after mountain, week after week, those are the persons you really need to inquire of. Are they willing to purchase an alternative food source where the price is almost double or triple? The answer is no. Sometimes it's almost cheaper to get a fast food for lunch than a local menu. I mean, think about it. If you go to a restaurant or you go to a food outlet, a lunch now, the average lunch now for the average citizen is nothing less than about $40. By the time you take something to drink, is about $40, $45 for lunch. So you're telling me somebody have to actually work minimum wage for around 2 hours in the day just to be able to afford lunch? That cannot make sense. It's difficult. So when our policymakers speak, they must speak and put themselves in the shoes of the consumers as well, to know that everything, for some strange reason, will always boil right down to the cost, the price of food. You want to have safe, nutritious, reasonable supply of food, and that is where the state has to come in and be able to bring the cost down so that facilitate the agro-processors, facilitate the farmers to bring the economies of scale to a commercially viable method or option to be able to get the price down. I would love to see persons eating more alternative flour, but sad to say it's quite pricey. Unless farmers are not able to produce at a cheaper cost, and labor, cost of inputs, fertilizer, pesticides, land preparation, machine and equipment, all of these areas are quite expensive. So these are some of the things that we need to think about when we are talking about reducing the food import bill and making food more affordable. Just the thought of the shortage of urea in the market has already sent certain farmers in frenzy. Some farmers are going through every agro shop and trying to buy out whatever little supply there is to stock up for the rainy day. And this is what drives price. This is what infiltrates price, influences price. So it is good to hear that our government, our policy makers, our ministers try to indicate that they want to bring the price of food down. They want to be able to make alternative production available and reduce our food import bill. But these are some of the things, we could stay all day talking about. But here on Real TV, the next harvest, we will dissect, we will reach down into some of the modern techniques and agricultural systems that will help farmers be able to do things and do production the right way, understanding climate change is real, to be able to produce. But hold that thought. Don't go anywhere. Grab something to drink some water, some tea, some coffee, and when we return, we will continue this very informative, this very important discussion about the foods that we consume and how it is linked to the food import bill and here in Trinidad and Tobago, our system. Stay tuned.
You're viewing Real TV, ultimate in programming. Thanks for choosing us.
Welcome to the Power Play, the most exciting period in sport. Join us every Friday from 7 to 8 p.m. as we bring to you all things sport. We break down football, cricket, basketball, all the latest sports in the Caribbean and of course across the world. Right here on Real TV, your station for local sport. Real to the heart, local to the core.
Get ready to party with a purpose. The GMVS Community Parent Support Group presents Party with a Purpose, the Cooler Fete, fully AC activated and sailing aboard the Harbor Master on Friday, December 12th, 2025. Boarding starts at 7:30 p.m. We sail from 8 to 11 p.m. and it's just $250. Bring your cooler and your crew, but remember, no glass and no firearms. It's good vibes only as we party for a cause. Music by DJs Doll, Smalls, and Chunks, featuring Rihanna Gopal, Amit Suknanan, Rishi Singh, Suresh Miraj, the original Pumping in the Sandman, and Tracy D. For tickets, call Crystal at 379-9248. That's Party with a Purpose, the Cooler Fete. Cool vibes, warm hearts, and all for a good cause.
When security matters most, choose Catch Security Services Limited. We are proudly approved by the Ministry of Homeland Security. We protect your home, business, community, and much more. Our services include professional baton and armed officers, specialized K-9 units, mobile patrols, secure cash pickups, secure transport, and pepper spray applications and supply coming soon. Don't wait. Secure your assets now. Contact Catch Security today. Call 622-6601, email info@cssl-tt.com, or visit our office at 30 to 32 Saddle Road, Miraval.
Welcome back, viewers. You are viewing The Next Harvest with your host, Avinash Singh. And today's episode is quite a series where I'm dissecting some of the conversations, some of what goes through the minds of us at the policy level making, and in terms of how to really devise a strategy and a plan to bring the food import bill down or to increase local content and local production. Some of the ramifications that goes through the administration's minds when they are looking at some of the areas, what to invest in, how to do, what to do, and what to really benefit our consumers. So I was talking about the food import bill as it relates to the production. As I've said, farmers in this country can produce. You just tell them how much, what, when, why to produce. They know their work. I have every confidence that the farmers in this country can produce. They can produce the quantities, the quality, the availability in no uncertain way. They will be able to fit their side. What is left for the state and what is left for everybody to do is to create the opportunities for that production to reach down to the ordinary citizens at an affordable price. And how we can do that, I really would like to see the day where we don't just talk, but we let the actions speak louder. So if this government wants to really get the food import bill down and they really want to see people consuming more local content, let's start with food, the school feeding program. I've seen for far too long, even in my time, even the time before, where we talk about getting local content in the food import, or food imports, getting local content into the markets, into the consumers' pocket, into the school feeding program. But I want to say, the day we can really truly mandate the school feeding program to purchase at least 50% of the composition of what goes into the food prep from our local farmers, we will just only be talking in mid-air. If you have our nutritionists, our chefs, a lot of local talent, a lot of foodies, people who go through this country and, find all these little nooks and crannies of where people are producing some nice quality food. Bring everybody to the table. Try to create a menu. Try to create some products. Try to create some attractive food and food menus that our young people, our children, will enjoy. And now mandate the school feeding program to purchase 50% of the element of whatever they are prepping from the local markets. NAMDEFCO can be the main negotiating agency to link the persons, the school feeding suppliers, with our local farmers and put into that system local content. So one day in the menu should be provision and callaloo. I am saying provision and callaloo should be on the menu of the school feeding program for lunch at least one day for the week. And in that way, you automatically remove hundreds of thousands of pounds of local produce that has to go and compete on a municipal or farmers or market that is already removed from that market and goes into a system that can really help us change the taste and the culture of our people. When you look at the hospital food as well, every patient in every hospital that is warded has to be provided with breakfast, lunch, dinner. The food that they consume at the hospitals, it's thousands of food menus per day. And if we're really serious in this country, we have to find a way to put the local content into these state-funded menus, state-funded purchases. I even reach the army, the police, the Coast Guard, the Air Guard, the prison. I ain't reached those agencies yet. But viewers, you put some thought into what I'm talking about. We find an avenue to provide all of these local content, the provision, the chicken, the fish, the aquaculture products, the tilapia, all of the eggs that we produce here in Trinidad and Tobago, all of the provision, as I said, the sweet potato, the cassava, the yam, the dashin, the Moruga Hill rice, all of these unique foods that we produce. If we have guaranteed markets in the form of state-purchased food, whether it goes to our children in schools, it goes to our patients in the hospitals, it goes to our prisoners in the prison system, it goes to our supply and delivery systems for our armed forces. It is a readily available market that will ensure our farmers continue to produce the quantities required, the economies of scale, and it will be profitable for farmers to continue. As long as we don't have these markets, we will be in problems. You will find gluts in the market, you will find farmers dumping goods when it's cheap, and you hear the stories. You hear stories of farmers saying, well, it's too cheap to harvest, I'm just going to leave the field right there. I can tell you, as a farmer, I've done that. I've left sweet potatoes to rot in the field because it was costing me too much to harvest. The money it was going to cost me to harvest sweet potato was cheaper than just leaving it right there. It was more beneficial for me to leave the field there and rotate it into the field as manure than paying to harvest it and then selling it at a loss to try to see how this thing makes sense. It's simply challenging. And that is what our farmers go through. Our farmers go through these trials and tribulations every day of their lives. I mean, I always say sometimes you are farming and, you are trying your best to do all of the cultural practices, the good agricultural practice, all of the, the spraying programs. You're trying to do organic. And at the end of the day, Mother Nature just pushes back. Lo and behold, you're planting, you're doing your thing good. Giant African snail come in the scene. That is the world's most destructive pest. Trust me when I tell you, I ain't seen nothing worse than that. It is going through and eating its way like an army on all vegetable and fruit production throughout the system. This giant African snail, it is a menacing. It is a pest that is, we tried when we were in office. I was in office for some time, and we tried a bounty system. Of course, I don't know, it didn't end well because one, it was done in the wrong season, in my opinion. It was done in the heart of the crop time, so collection was difficult. At that period of time, giant African snails, they go into hibernation mode, they go down into the soil, they bury themselves. So collection is difficult. You're not going to get the volumes, you're not going to get the quantity of snail, and then the handling is what we had issues with. Some persons were not listening to the disclaimers, the tools and the health and safety requirement of not touching snails with your bare hands. Put on 3 and 4 gloves when you're handling it. Some person, I remember reading in the papers, one person, hands got swollen, almost infected, because I assume that he got in contact with the snail directly and whatnot. So the quantities were not significant to really make a dent. But I know there are some Caribbean territories who did the bounty system and it was quite successful, because they choose to do it in the rainy season when the numbers and the multiplication rate of the giant African snail is by the millions. So in the rainy season, after a little drizzle, anywhere there's green matter or food, you will find millions of snail, all different sizes, coming out to feed. And that is some of the things that I want to implore the new government to really look at, because while we talk about producing more, I mean, the pest and disease prevalence now is by far greater than it was 20 years ago. I remember planting sweet potato. Of course, many people still call me the sweet potato man. I mean, of course, I earned my political reputation from campaigning, and then I had no jersey and no cell phone and no shades and no hat to give away. I gave some sweet potatoes from my farm, and I earned the name the sweet potato man during the 2013 by-election in Shogunas. And I can tell you, 15 years ago when my family planted sweet potatoes, the cultural practice was a lot easier, cheaper, and less stressful and challenging than it is today. Today I'm seeing the same commodities, the same crops being planted with about 10 to 15 times more effort. You have to spray more. You have to deal with more pests, more diseases, climate change, drought, flooding. All of these things are coming at you. And it's extremely difficult for farmers to really earn a profit when you have to face all of these changing dynamics of plant production. So that is what I intend to advise on. That is what I'm here to explore with you. My years of experience at a policy level, my years of experience as a practical farmer, I still do farming. Just before I came on set, I visited my greenhouse operation. Of course, I have cucumbers right now and it's doing lovely. And I was sharing a little laughter where there is a Karaili tree that grew in my greenhouse and I didn't plant it. Probably the seed was left there and it grew because it got the right temperature, it got the right amount of water, and it just grew for itself, and it creep up on my shade cloth on the greenhouse, on the shade house. I didn't pull it out. So a normal setting, it would be classified as a weed. But hey, this is a Karaili plant, and now if you see Karaili, it's bearing. I probably checked more than 100 Karaili on this one plant. And I was making the joke that sometimes farmers actually plant Karaili and do all the cultural practice and it still don't perform the way this one that just grow for itself. Mother Nature is really something that we have to admire. How Mother Earth takes care of itself. How the earth is able to transform, bloom and blossom certain crops without any input or effort from farmers. And then when farmers actually put all the effort in the world, you end up in problems. Your yield is not what it's supposed to be. You get pests, you get diseases. And these are some of the things that, farmers go through. And there's no textbook to learn some of these things. You have to get your hands dirty. You have to put your hands in the soil, and there is where you will learn the true essence of being a farmer and the true essence of understanding that this business of agriculture, it is a very noble one. It is not always profitable. Sometimes it's almost like a gamble. You put out all your money and then time to return, one flood takes you. And that is the end of that crop. But we are a resilient people. We have a resilient farming population. We learn from our ancestors. We learn from our grandparents, our parents who have been here, who can share their expertise, share their experience, share what they would have learned to us, the younger generation. And now technology and AI is making it easier for us to navigate through agriculture in the 21st century. And that is what the next harvest is going to explore as we continue these episodes. And I do look forward to really taking this program and taking this show out on the field where you not only get to hear from me and see what's going on, you will get to see and experience from the farmers themselves, the agro-entrepreneurs, the agro-processors, the women in agriculture, the young people in agriculture. You are really going to get the opportunity to explore agriculture in the 21st century here in Trinidad and Tobago, and we will dive into the depths of converting our raw material into good alternative to the imported versions where you can really get a product world class right here in Trinidad and Tobago. So the next harvest with Avinash Singh here on Real TV, it's something that I want you to, be excited about. It's something that I'm very passionate about. It's something I would want to share with you as we go through the next seasons and the next episodes. And I really look forward to this program coming into your homes, coming into your backyard, into your kitchen garden, to the commercial farmers, and where we can share information. I don't know it all. Agriculture is a learning experience. Every day I learn something from farmers who are more experienced than I am, and from people who, experiment, they learn from their mistakes, and they put their expertise into use so that you can get safe, nutritious, and affordable food for consumption. So as we close today's episode, I want to thank you for joining me from the comfort of your homes or wherever you are, both local, regional, and international. You are right here on Real TV. Avinash Singh, your host. I do look forward to the next episode where we will share what some of our farmers are doing and where we will try and continue where we left off, where identifying some of the incentives and subsidies that are available to all farmers. May God continue to bless our farmers that feed us, and I do look forward to seeing you soon. Take care and happy farming.